Former President Jiang Zemin passes away at the age of 96. A look at the government's plan to adjust the tolls for the city's 3 vehicular harbor crossings. And a warning from the security chief that local protests remembering Urumqi fire victims may be in breach of the national security law. Hello and welcome to TVB News. Former Chinese President Jiang Zemin passed away in Shanghai at 12:13 p.m. today at the age of 96. According to state media, he died of leukemia and multiple organ failure. Xinhua news agency reported that Jiang's death at around 4:30 this afternoon. In the announcement, Jiang was described as an outstanding leader enjoying high prestige, acknowledged by the whole party, military, and the Chinese people of all ethnic groups. And his passing brought immeasurable loss to the entire country. After the news broke, Chinese media organizations changed their website and social media to black. To mourn Jiang's death, flags will be flown at half-mast at major Chinese Communist Party and government buildings. Jiang had served as head of state from 1993 to 2003, during which China saw huge economic and social changes. Our Jackie Lin takes a look back at the former leader's career and life and his connection with Hong Kong.
In 2019, Jiang Zemin made his last public appearances during the funeral for former Premier Li Peng and the celebration for the 70th anniversary of the Communist Party. He appeared frail on both occasions. Jiang graduated with an electrical engineering degree from Shanghai Jiao Tong University and worked in a slew of industries from food factories to automobile plants before taking up a government post. In 1989, Jiang was the mayor of Shanghai during the June 4th movement. Analysts said Deng Xiaoping appreciated Jiang's handling of the student protests in Shanghai, and that helped catapult Jiang from a municipal official to the core of China's power elites. Replacing Zhao Ziyang, Jiang was appointed General Secretary of the Communist Party before taking over as the chairman of the Central Military Commission in a few months' time, and ultimately China's president in 1993. While Jiang was the first Chinese leader without a military background, he oversaw the modernization of the Chinese military and the country's manned space missions. Jiang continued with Deng Xiaoping's efforts to further open up the country's economy, with China joining the World Trade Organization under his leadership. During his tenure, Jiang visited Hong Kong 4 times. They include the SAR's return to Chinese rule in 1997 and the one-year handover anniversary. He inspected the People's Liberation Army Hong Kong garrison on Stonecutters Island and officiated at the launch of Hong Kong International Airport. The last visit was in 2002. In 1996, the then Chinese leader singled out Tong Chih-hua for a handshake, a symbolic king-making gesture. Tong later became Hong Kong's first chief executive, but many people in the city will remember Jiang for this memorable line.
Too simple. Sometimes naive.
That's part of Jiang's long tirade when a Hong Kong journalist asked him if Beijing had issued an imperial order to support Tong in his bid to seek a second term as a chief executive. Politics aside, Jiang was an aficionado of art and literature. During his overseas visits, he displayed some of his less serious side.
Because in that time already joined Communist Party. I have much work to do. Even I was intentional to MIT. I'm convinced that if in that time I went to MIT, maybe I'm also doctorate degree.
During his 13 years of tenure, Jiang's theory of three represents has been enshrined as one of the guiding political principles of China. In 2002, Jiang retired from the party's Politburo Standing Committee to make way for the next generation of leaders helmed by Hu Jintao. After his retirement, there have been unverified rumors about his ill health, including a false report by Hong Kong media of his death in 2011. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
Sources say the government is planning to adjust the tolls for the city's 3 vehicular harbor crossings in several phases to relieve Hong Kong's traffic congestion. The first phase includes lowering the toll for private cars at the Western Harbor crossing. That's while raising the price for private cars at both the Eastern Harbor crossing and the Cross Harbor Tunnel. Timothy Lee tells us more.
Long lines of cars crammed inside Hong Kong's Cross Harbor tunnels are some of the city's most common sights, but these scenes could soon become a thing of the past. With the Western Harbor crossing due to return to government ownership next August, authorities are planning to adjust the city's harbor crossing tolls in a bid to divert heavy traffic. Rolling out this price adjustment plan in various phases, the government will reduce the Western Harbor crossing toll for private cars from $75 to $60. Hong Kong's busiest vehicular harbor crossing, the Cross Harbor Tunnel, will see its toll increasing to $30, a price hike of 50%. The Eastern Harbor crossing is also raising prices to $30. The proposal also introduced time-varying tolls, which would change based on the traffic situation. But the potential changes seem to have divided opinion amongst the city's drivers. This man said with such obvious differences in toll prices, everyone would just choose to drive through the cheapest Cross Harbor Tunnel. While this driver said some people prefer convenience, adding that many will still choose to use the Eastern Harbor Crossing and Cross Harbor Tunnel. Chow Kok-keung, the chairman of the Hong Kong Taxi and Public Light Bus Association, believes the proposed changes will boost business for the taxi sector, as taxi drivers could offer more rides via the less congested Western Harbor crossing. Some lawmakers in the Legislative Council said the government should further lower the toll for the Western Harbor crossing, stressing that most people will still prefer using the other 2 tunnels, albeit at a higher cost. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Secretary for Security Chris Tang today warned that recent protests in Hong Kong to remember victims of the Urumqi fire in Xinjiang may breach the city's national security law. He described these acts as early signs of a color revolution. Christy Khan has more.
Protests against stringent anti-COVID restrictions have spread across the mainland after a deadly fire in Xinjiang killed 10 people in an apartment block last week. Mainland authorities have denied allegations that strict COVID-19 restrictions hampered rescue efforts. The fire's aftermath saw people around the world holding their own demonstrations in solidarity with mainland protesters. People also took to the streets in Hong Kong. Protesters holding blank sheets of paper were seen in central Yau Ma Tei and some university campuses. The blank sheet was first used by the mainland protesters as a symbol of Texas defiance against censorship. Speaking to reporters in the Legislative Council today, Secretary for Security Chris Tang said protests in the city might breach the national security law.
In the past few days, what we have observed that happened inside the universities and on the street corners, we observed that there are people using this opportunity to incite against the central government. And we can see some of the familiar faces that they are actively participating in the illegal act in 2019.
He added some protesters were chanting and holding slogans that may threaten national security. Tan said university management had the responsibility to ensure the campus does not again become a base for rioters. Christy Khan, TVB News.
The city reported 8,810 new COVID cases, over 1,000 more than yesterday. DAB Chairwoman Starry Lee tested positive today. Her positive result came just a day after she submitted her application for the Hong Kong deputy role to the National People's Congress in a Sheung-wan office. At the office, she met other applicants and shook hands with Wong Kam Leung, the chairman of the Hong Kong Federation of Education Workers. Meanwhile, 8,153 locally acquired infections were reported today. 27 infections involving residents and staff members were reported across 20 care homes for the elderly and the disabled. 1,466 cases were reported across 773 schools. 23 schools have to suspend classes for a week. 4 more cases of the BQ.1.1 subvariant were reported. There was 1 case each of the XBB, XBD, and BF7 strains. 16 more COVID patients died, bringing the city's 5th wave death toll to 10,534. And as China's COVID caseloads continue to surge, protests reportedly erupted in multiple mainland cities against the country's zero COVID policy and lockdown measures. Reuters showed some protesters facing off with police and lobbing glass bottles at the officers. This as the mainland reported more than 37,000 new domestic COVID cases. Capital Beijing added over 4,500 infections, a slight drop from yesterday. Guangdong province reported more than 8,000 new cases overnight, with most cases reported from Guangzhou. All 11 districts in the city have suspended dine-in services. Some residents took to the streets as discontent reportedly grew over strict COVID measures. Several districts in Guangzhou, including Panyu and Liwan, later downgraded all temporary control zones as low COVID risk. Other COVID hotspots logging thousands-strong new infections include Chongqing, Sichuan, and Xinjiang. The 3-person crew of the Shenzhou 15 spaceship docked early this morning with the Tiangong space station after launching late on Tuesday. They will overlap for several days with the 3-member Shenzhou 14 crew already on board and expand the facility to its maximum size. Daniel Rao tells us more.
The docking with the Tiangong space station came at 5:42 a.m. today, about 6.5 hours after the Shenzhou 15 spaceship blasted off atop a Long March 2F carrier rocket from the Zhouquan Satellite Launch Center. According to the China Manned Space Agency, the 6-month mission, commanded by Fei Junlong and crewed by Deng Qingming and Zhang Lu, will be the last in the station's construction phase. The station's 3rd and final module docked earlier this month. The Shenzhou 15 crew will spend several days working with the 3 crew members of the Shenzhou 14 mission, who have been on board the Tiangong station for 6 months. Then the Shenzhou 14 crew will return to Earth, marking the first ever in-orbit crew rotation in China's space station. 57-year-old Fei is a veteran of the 2005 Shenzhou 6 mission, the 2nd time China sent a human into space. Deng and Zhang are making their first space flights. The space station has now expanded to its maximum size, with 3 modules and 3 spacecraft attached for a total mass of nearly 100 tons. Tiangong can accommodate 6 astronauts at a time, and the handover will take about a week. Next year, the mainland plans to launch the Zhunqian Space Telescope. The telescope, while not part of the Tiangong space station, will orbit in sequence with it and can dock occasionally for maintenance. Without the attached spacecraft, the Tiangong station weighs about 66 tons, a fraction of the International Space Station, which launched its first module in 1998 and weighs around 465 tons. With a lifespan of 10 to 15 years, Tiangong could one day be the only space station still in operation if the International Space Station retires in the coming years. Daniel Rao, TVB News.
The Australian Parliament has voted to censure former Prime Minister Scott Morrison. This after an inquiry found his appointment to other ministries during the coronavirus pandemic had undermined trust in the government. The motion brought by the ruling Labour Party passed by 86 votes to 50 in the lower house. The motion is symbolic, however. Morrison said his decisions were lawful after he took over health, finance, Treasury, resources, and home affairs. Speaking in the chamber, Morrison said it was necessary in case ministers became incapacitated during the pandemic.
Have you ever had to deal with a crisis with the outlook?
And still ahead, NATO vows more help for Ukraine. Democratic Party Chairman Lo Kin-hae acquitted of an unlawful assembly charge. And efforts to combat the city's food waste problem. Welcome back to TVB News. Ukraine said it had repelled 6 Russian attacks in the eastern Donbas industrial region, while Moscow's forces continued to pound areas in the south. As Ukraine makes a plea for more air defense weapons to counter Russia's missile barrage, NATO allies are meeting in Romania to discuss military and non-lethal aid to Kyiv. The U.S. and its NATO allies have vowed to help Ukraine rebuild its power infrastructure, which has been devastated by Russian missiles. Nazvi Karim has more.
NATO has promised to supply Ukraine with more arms to help defend against Russian missile attacks on key cities. The big question, however, is whether they're the kind of weapons Ukraine is desperately seeking. For Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba, there's one particular type of weapon Kyiv is eyeing.
When we have air defense systems, we will be able to protect this infrastructure from the next Russian missile strikes. So, in a nutshell, Patriots and Transformers is what Ukraine needs the most.
The Transformers should not be a problem. Indeed, the key focus of this 2-day NATO meeting in Romania is to boost non-lethal aid to Ukraine to rebuild energy facilities and other infrastructure destroyed by Russian strikes. The Patriots, though, is of a more sensitive nature. The U.S. has been reluctant to provide Ukraine with Patriots, which are considered among the world's best air defense systems, for fear of provoking Russia, which has warned against the deployment of such weapons.
In terms of any type of Patriot battery from the U.S., right now we have no plans to provide Patriot batteries to Ukraine.
Patriots apart, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Washington would provide Ukraine with $53 million to help restore the country's power transmission capabilities. He also accused Russia of turning parts of the Black Sea into a war zone, saying the Kremlin is responsible for causing one of the worst food security crises in years.
When it comes to the Black Sea region, this is an area of vital strategic importance to us and to NATO. We are not going to be deterred going forward. We're going to be reinforcing NATO's presence from the Black to the Baltic Seas.
Meanwhile, NATO has renewed its commitment to one day include Ukraine, a promise that many believe prompted Russia to invade in the first place. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said Russia does not have a veto on countries joining NATO, with North Macedonia and Montenegro recently admitted to the military alliance, and Finland and Sweden also knocking on the door. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
And back at home, the chairman of the Democratic Party, Lo Kin-hae, has been acquitted of participating in an unlawful assembly near the Hong Kong Polytechnic University 3 years ago. Lo, together with 4 other defendants, including one who identified himself as a reporter, appeared at the district court today. All of them pleaded not guilty to the charges. The judge ruled that Lo didn't take part in the assembly outside the Science Museum, as he didn't interact with the other protesters at the time. 3 other defendants, however, were convicted of unlawful assembly. The reporter, meanwhile, was found guilty of possessing offensive weapons. Food waste has long been an environmental problem in Hong Kong. As Christy Khan reports, some recyclers think more work needs to be done to improve the current situation.
According to statistics of the Environmental Protection Department, 3,255 tons of food waste was dumped at the city's landfills every day in 2020. To alleviate the problem, a number of groups are working on food waste collection and recycling. Among them, a startup called Eco Community Promotion Association Limited, also known as EasyPao. Apart from collecting food waste from commercial clients, EasyPao has also set up community bins for household subscribers at 7 locations across Hong Kong Island. Currently, the company has 115 household subscribers who pays a monthly fee ranging from $110 to $130. The bins are attached with number combination locks so that non-subscribers cannot use them. Nadia is one of the subscribers.
I thought that it was important to make sure that my food waste was getting a new life. I think it's, the fact that I have to pay for it can tell the government and also other facilities that we are interested in this service.
The food waste is collected 3 times a week and then transported to censures. After collecting food waste from these community bins, the EasyPao team will deliver the compost to the Old Park 1 in Lantau. Later, the compost will be converted into biogas for generating electricity. Old Park 1, also known as Organic Resources Recovery Center Phase 1, is a facility which can process up to 200 tons of food waste per day. Since it came into operation in 2018, the facility still has not reached its maximum capacity. Compared with other developed cities in Asia such as Seoul and Taipei, Hong Kong's food waste recycling rate is still far from satisfactory.
In Hong Kong, there are only a few policies that are targeting at solving food waste. Even though some people want to recycle their food waste, they have no ways to do so.
The founder of EasyPao noted that the building of the Old Park facility is a good start, but more work is needed to make Hong Kong a green and sustainable city. He added that green education is essential if authorities want to raise Hong Kong people's awareness about environmental protection. Christy Khan, TVB News.
That is the news. Thanks for watching. Have a great evening.